Keenan Pili is out for what's been called several weeks. I don't know what that means as far as the number of weeks, but I can tell you right now, just to use that terminology, I think is probably very troubling for the Pili family. What does that mean for the Vols? How big of a loss is that? We get to that right now. It is today's tough question.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Let's start with what you thought about Keenan Pili, who got a game ball against Virginia. What did you think about his play on Saturday before we dive into the injury? Caleb, I thought he played really solid. I thought he's a middle linebacker type who's probably not going to ring up big stats, but I think he's responsible for the defensive front and that they get in the right calls, and they look fantastic. So I would have to give him an A+, even though the stat line was not enormous. I think he had 4 or 5 tackles.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's pretty high for me too. It's an A+ range. The thing that stood out to me is, and you may have known this, and I didn't really realize this about football until a couple of years ago, but being good in coverage as a linebacker is not so much about speed as it is just kind of understanding positions and understanding where, your footwork and how you need to get where you need to go. Because Jeremy Banks is faster than Keenan Pili, but it seems like Keenan Pili is significantly better in pass coverage than Jeremy Banks was. And
agree.
Yeah, and so I think that Keenan Pili really showed that he has the fit of, okay, putting aside what we thought about what the scandal. Remember Penn State linebacker U always had kind of slower linebackers that were always in position, though, all the time during the Joe Paterno days. And
right.
Keenan Pili seems to have that type of profile as a player. And it's perfect for Tennessee because then it allows Aaron Beasley to do what he is best at naturally as the weak side linebacker. So, yeah, I'm with you. I give him an A+ on that.
Yeah, and when it says that the timeline, I know that Josh Heupel has said over the next couple of weeks, they'll take a look at him and anticipate as we go over the next couple of weeks, we'll kind of figure out what the timeline is for him. He said that on Ball Calls, and they again quote, hopefully we're able to get him back here in the middle part of the season. He's someone that you just hate it for him. So, I mean, that's first and foremost. And I say that because here's the young man who went on his Mormon mission. He enrolled, he was born in 98. So the guy is 25 years old, and he went on his Mormon mission. He played his best for BYU, brought them an awful lot of good football, and then makes the move. So he's not going to get another year. This is year 6. So first, I feel bad for the young man. But as far as when he might be back, on our message board, Travis says maybe the Alabama game. Well, first of all, Josh Heupel plays things close to the vest, and we'll have more insight as more people talk, and we'll have more as we go along. But the Alabama game, would that be an optimistic or realistic goal to have Pili back? I think it's probably a little bit optimistic, but I will call it realistic as well, if that makes sense. We'll just have to see what all they find. And again, it's not a situation where he's going to release a lot of injury information. Nobody does at this point. I can tell you that I'll have some more on that as in the coming days, but right now, we know it's a significant amount of time. Expected to miss a couple of weeks, but that's what they said about Cooper Mays too.
Yeah, and look, the thing is, from a positive perspective, I'm with you. I feel awful for him, but say he gets back in late October, that's plenty of time to have an impact on the team throughout the year. Dave, you covered the 2001 team. I don't know if any players ever had an impact coming back from an injury the second half of the season like Dante Stallworth did in 2001. I mean, Kelly Washington had taken all the hype and the stardom, and then Stallworth comes back, and by the end of the year, we thought Stallworth was better than Washington, honestly.
And at the time, Kelly tricked Dante and into going pro early, but that's a whole nother story. Here's why Tennessee can accept this blow, and I didn't think that they could handle Cooper Mays' loss as well as they did. Now, again, everything has to be taken with the backdrop that this is Virginia last week. So everything we saw, we have to keep that in mind. Okay, we can't just forget that. That's one of the worst Power 5 teams in the nation. But Tennessee has built some depth. So you have a Caleb Herring that's there. You have an Arion Carter that's there. You have Aaron Beasley. So where this hurts you immediately is that I would think they would slide Beasley back to the middle where he played last year, and then it would be Carter or Herring on the outside. So that hurts you right now because Beasley's natural position is to play outside. But it does speak to the fact that Tennessee now has depth at that position where at least it's not like they're running a guy out there that physically just can't handle SEC play. I think you would agree Harry and Arion Carter look like SEC players, the latter of which looks like a special SEC player to me.
Yeah, are you sure Arion Carter can't play inside linebacker? I mean, he committed as one.
I'm not sure. No, I'll tell you what. Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed that out because I'll tell you when I know something when I'm speculating. I'm speculating at this point. Maybe he could. Maybe he puts him in there. I don't think we'll know until the Vols take the field against Austin Peay because practice is closed. But very possible. Maybe you think long-term move that he could be a middle linebacker for you, not just the rest of this year, but into the future. And you kind of make that move to give him a look. That's a real possibility. You just don't have a lot of games before you got to get really serious. I mean, had this happened in the preseason, I think you think more long-term as far as getting Beasley more than Mike, if that's where you want him. But you got Austin Peay, and then things get serious with the trip to Florida. And I don't care how good you think Florida is. I mean, that's still a trip to Florida.
Yeah, and it's still Tennessee and the history of Tennessee playing Florida that is going to be sticking in everybody's mind. So the reason I asked that, do you think in Tennessee system, does size matter more when you're playing inside linebacker? Like, do you need to be close to Keenan Pili size, like the 240 range, or can you be in the 225, 230 range playing on the inside?
Depends how much you ask of them in pass coverage. I think you'd like that bigger guy in the 240 range, but I think you could take 225. But that's where they are. So they're going to be fast. I think this
because Elijah Herring is 238. So you could probably put Elijah Herring in at middle linebacker and have Aaron Beasley stay outside.
Yeah. And Dan points out of the message board, the communication at the Swamp. I think that's the biggest concern to me. If I'm Tennessee fan right now, communication at the Swamp, this guy's been in charge of handling the line calls. I'm sure other people have done it to be ready in a situation like this, but I think that's your concern. And I think it's incumbent upon the defensive tackles to play like they played against Virginia moving forward and be able to make a couple of plays at the line against the run game. But
look at 98 when Al Wilson made all the calls for the defense and he was the best player in the heart and soul and he had to miss Auburn and Georgia. The defensive line Sean Ellis basically stepped up and dominated those 2 weeks.
That's a fantastic point. Hadn't thought about that. You very well might read about that on offthehooksports.com. So how big of a loss is this for the Vols? I can't think of anybody. We had Mays as the player that Tennessee wanted to most wrap in bubble wrap and not get hurt. So sure enough, he gets hurt. Pili would be that second level of guys that if you would have asked me Sunday after I saw him one game because of what he brings. I mean, is there any player other than Joe Milton on this entire roster? I'm not being gloom and doom here. I think Tennessee's fine because Josh Heupel has recruited some depth at the linebacker position. But is there really any player that you could say, man, you'd hate to lose him way more than Keenan Pili? I mean, to me, there's a second level kind of there outside of the quarterback position that he's one of those you did not want to lose.
Yeah, there's a few of those. There's people on Keenan Pili's level. I think Javonte Spraggins is on Keenan Pili's level because that right guard is just, you can't just plug somebody in there. I think Amari Thomas, Big O at defensive tackle, is in that list because Amari Thomas is the one trustworthy defensive tackle that you can watch on this Tennessee team and say that guy is there. There's a reason Josh Heupel brought Amari Thomas to SEC Media Days, and we kind of saw that last week.